Jennifer Knatters. I'm Jennifer and this is my knitting and nattering video podcast where I have a wee blether about what I'm doing craft-wise and just in life in general. Hi, it's been about a month. I mentioned last time that the UK was locked down. We still are mostly, except they have opened the schools so that nursery through to P3, which is my two children. I've got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, so they just got one in nursery and one in P3. So they returned to school last week. And so I've had a time to actually work on a few things and now talk to you. Hi, I've missed you. I feel pretty lonely. I will admit this second lockdown has been a lot harder than the first one back in March, even though we basically haven't changed anything. I just said back in March and it is March. Today is March 2nd, 2021. It is March again. My husband has not left the house except to go for walks since the 4th, March 4th last year. I think the 3rd was the last time he interacted with another person in person who isn't a member of our family. And it was another week and a half, I think, before the rest of us did. I was still taking the kids to school, but we had stopped going to like play group and activities and stuff like that. And I yanked my kids out of school. It was definitely a family decision. We pulled the kids out of school a week before the UK went into lockdown last year. I say the UK, pretty sure here in Scotland we went into lockdown and then it was another week before England went into lockdown. But the week before that, the Republic of Ireland had gone into lockdown. So we pulled our kids out. It was the same time the Republic of Ireland had gone into lockdown. So yeah, hello, 1 year of lockdown. What even was I saying? Our children, our 4-year-old and our 8-year-old, are currently at school. They have not been thrilled to go back. They really like just hanging out at home all day with mom. The older one has a bit more anxiety about like getting coronavirus, or the younger one I think is just wants to hang out with me all day and play games, even though she will have more fun at nursery, because at nursery there are other kids to play with. She really needs that social interaction in a way the older one would be content to play Minecraft and Roblox and watch She-Ra on Netflix in a way that the younger one is not as settled. But they are back in school, and I spent last week cleaning, although looking around this room you would not know that I did clean this one. Hoovered, swept, mopped, picked everything up and put it away. Catherine, the 4-year-old, had come home from nursery that day, and it was Chris's day off. My husband, he takes Thursday and Sunday off. She came home and was like, oh my goodness, the room's clean. It's so much easier to play in here now. And then immediately got a whole bunch of stuff out to play with my husband. So yeah, it is easier to play if things are tidied away properly and then you have space and you can see what you're doing. But I can't seem to convince them that they actually want to help tidy up on a regular basis, and that was not a thing I was going to be fighting about when we were in lockdown, and fighting about doing schoolwork and other stuff. I know I said my last time that it was going really well. It did go really well the first week, and then like each week it just got that little bit harder. But yeah, they're both back. They're happy when I pick them up. They just don't want to go. So I think they're fine. They just would rather stay home and watch telly and play video games, which is a lot of what we did in lockdown, because basically since the last time I talked to you, it snowed here. It didn't snow every day, but it also didn't melt here. As you can see, we've got the trees around. They go from over there where the sun rises up over here to where the sun sets. And this time of year, the sun, it actually is just now starting to be high enough in the sky to make it over the tops of the trees. But the snow at our house does not melt. So at our house, it stayed completely snowy and white and covered in snow. And then every so often it would snow a little more. If you went to the other end of the street, it was just a few patches of snow. Our house completely covered. And then we got even more snow, and there was this huge beast from the east, which is what they call it here in the UK when our weather comes from Russia. Instead, it usually comes from the mid-Atlantic. It comes up from like Florida and that area, and then comes across the Atlantic and up. You know, maybe hits Africa and comes up, but it's the Atlantic, and this was coming from the North Pacific, so they called it the beast from the east. Really cold. It was -10 during the day here. I bought a sled for the kids. That was fun, but for a large part, it just wasn't nice for going out and spending a lot of time outside. So but now the weather has been lovely. But this is a knitting podcast, not a blether on about the weather podcast, although honestly it is. But that's supposed to come later. So yeah, I've been cleaning most of last week. The Monday after I dropped the kids at school, I came home and I just collapsed, and like I had a headache and my whole body hurt, and I just couldn't do anything. I even went and took a nap, although I don't think I slept. I just kind of lay there like, and it's just because, I mean, since my kids have been home, I have not had even like 5 minutes. You go to the toilet, you lock the door, and there, you know, the fingers under the door, the knocking, the crying, why won't you let me in? And I'm like, I'm just trying to go toilet. And then towards the end of it, they were staying up later and later, which meant I didn't get, like, if they at least go to bed at this point, like it was close to 10 o'clock before they were going to bed, and then like I didn't have any downtime for me. So yeah, it's rough, and I say it's rough. We are so lucky. We've got the large garden, we've got the woods, we had a little hill nearby we could go sledding safely on once I bought a sled. We've got a trampoline over here, large house, large garden, internet, devices. I mean, we are so lucky in how we are situated, and it was still really, really, really hard. So if you are still in it, if you are having a hard time, I feel you. Solidarity. Knitting. I have several finished objects. One I forgot to show last time. I'm sorry, my fringe is just, it looks really cute, but it's tickling my forehead. I have not had my hair cut, I think, since November 2019. I've cut my own hair, though I haven't even done that since like September. I think I may have given it a trim. I botched it over the summer. I wound up giving myself a mullet and then cut it really, really short and did not like it. And it's grown out, but I haven't really wanted to mess around with it too much. But I did even it out a little bit as it had gotten longer in like September. So I have not cut my hair except occasionally to ruin my fringe again since September. And my hair just, every week it's like a different decade almost with how long my hair is and what it wants to do. So I'm trying not to mess with it too much. I have a finished object, which I meant to show you last week and completely forgot about. Like, absolutely, I said I had no finished objects. I had completely forgotten that I had made. This is Nutmeg, and it was a mystery knit along for Advent. Imagined Landscapes. Her name is Sarah. I don't know her last name. And I knit this with Stash Scrappy Minis. I don't know who any of my minis are from because I tend to ball them up and then throw them all in a box so I can just pull them out and knit with them. And then I don't have the labels or anything. But it is a Christmas gnome. The pattern came with legs, and I haven't, I mean, obviously I could always go back and add them, but I haven't done it. And then I put a bell in the little bauble for the hat. So yeah, this is Nutmeg the Gnome, which I finished at some point in January. And it's very cute, and it has gone to sit on the shelf with my other gnomes. They are currently in my bedroom. Sometimes they sit out here in the conservatory. Yeah, so that's my first finished object. And then my second finished object I knit last week while the kids were at school, and this was for my older child who is obsessed with pusheen. It is supposed to be a pusheen pattern. It is supposed to look like pusheen, but the ears are just a little too pointy. I think if they were rounder, and then I didn't embroider the face, I didn't put like the whiskers on. The pattern also includes a coat and then boots, and the coat has the arms, a hat, and then there's a scarf. But all I got done was the cat itself, and Christina is very, 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 very happy with it. But yeah, I think because the ears are pointy, it doesn't quite have that pushing silhouette. And then because it is supposed to be wearing a coat, it doesn't have the stripes, the 2 stripes on the back, but it does. I did embroider the 3 stripes on the head, and it's got stripes on the tail. So it's a little pusheen, and I just knit this with, I can't remember what it's called. It's Drops DK wool, I think merino, Charisma? Is it Drops Charisma? With a K? I don't remember. Anyway, this is her little cat, which she got for her first week back at school. And she loves it. She has named it Fluffy Cutie Avesness, or Cutie Fluffiness Aves, or she named it. It has a very complicated cat name. So those are my 2 toys. And then I am considering this blanket. You can't even see where I'm holding it. I am considering it finished because I've squared it off at 13 by 14. But I'm not going to show it for you because it's got lots of dangly bits. I'm going to weave the ends in. It has not been something I can do while reading, which is what I've been doing more than watching videos lately with my knitting time. I've got my pad here. I put my book up on it, and then I just have to tap the page. Pages change. But I need something where I can look at what I'm doing. And even when I watch videos, I have subtitles on, so I need to be slightly more aware of what's going on. Like knitting, I don't have to look at the whole time, but for weaving and ends, you kind of do. So maybe get an audio book and listen to that while I sit down and weave the ends in on this. I will probably at some point go back and make it just a tiny bit bigger, but for now I'm calling it done so I can work on other things. And Catherine, my 4-year-old, has basically claimed it, and so it just wanders around the house with her. It is almost as large as my queen size bed, but yeah, she just wanders around the house with it, so that's very happy. And then my next proper finished object, I showed you last week, I had a sock tube from Ducky Darlings, and I had cut it in half, and I was working on the first sock. I have finished those socks. I would like to apologize. I gave them to my husband for his birthday in January, and they have been worn a lot. So just to show you, I have finished the first pair, and she threw in this as a contrasting mini for it. And then I knit a second pair, and I picked out this red to be the contrast for it. And then I realized I didn't have enough, so I changed the toes to be this orange. This is an easy knitter, and I do not know what the red is, so I did that. And then when I knit the heel on this one, I ran out of yarn, so it's got a little bit of the orange just on the heel. My husband will not care about that. I don't know if you can see, the difference between the tension at which I knit socks and the tension at which the sock machine, I mean, there is a big difference there. And when I was looking at, these are the new pair of socks for my husband. I was going to make them for me, but then I decided they're pretty loose on me, so I'd give them to him. But the other ones, I mean, I don't know if you can see how big around this is here. I'm hoping when they wash, they stretch out more, because this is the same number of stitches for the same number of rounds, and they are very much different lengths, and they are also let's see if I can show you properly how different the width is. So here we go, it's lined up on this side. I mean, that is, look at all that. It has stretched vertically, not vertically, it is stretched horizontally. And they seem extra loose, which I'm guessing is just because they're knit at a looser gauge than I'm used to. So you can see how that has, like, they've stretched wide, and then up here they're smaller stitches, and here they're very wide stitches. So I don't know if this is a sock tube thing, if it's because it's a looser gauge and anyone who knits socks at this gauge will have this, or what. I mean, if they wash and they go back to the more normal shape, and that's just what happens if you wear them, you know, once you've worn them for like 2 weeks, then I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I am new to sock tubes. So yeah, that is 2 pairs from 100 gram sock tube. All I needed was 2 minis to do the heels and the cuffs. And the second mini I ran out because it was one that is already somewhere in the blanket. I've already used 5 grams of the mini for the blanket. So 2 20-gram minis would have done it, and I've even got a little bit of the more brownie taupey one. I haven't weighed it yet, but I've probably got like 3 grams of it left. So yeah, that's a really good deal. And then I have another pair of socks. These ones are hand knit by me, and they are Woolly Goodness yarns, and this is the color Unicorn Fizzle on her sparkle base. I don't know if you can see how sparkly these are. You can kind of see it on the heel down there. These are so sparkly in person. They're just amazingly sparkly, and they're very cute light pastels. It came with the silver for the contrasts, and then I did I did a garter stitch short row heel with a heel flap adjustment, and that's a Mina Phillips pattern for the heel. I think you can buy it if you, she has 2 vanilla sock patterns, one that's free and one that's paid, and the paid one includes instructions for the heel flap adjustment, and then any of her paid patterns come with the instructions for the heel flap adjustment as well. So if that seems, if anatomically a tube sock with a little bit of a heel cut into it is not the most comfortable shape, though it is how most store-bought socks are made. So if you do want the convenience of the heel flap and gusset, right there, that little triangle is the gusset, without screwing up your stripes, then this is a good compromise. As you can see, I will line you up with the yarn. So this bottom sock does not have, this is just a plain part of the tube, and here's where it's a slightly different stitch count because of the gusset, and you can see, I mean, the difference is minuscule to non-existent. So yeah, I have not worn these yet. I have knit them, I have not worn them yet. I have done a garter stitch heel on another pair of socks, and that's quite comfortable. But this heel flap adjustment is a new one, so I will try that out and I can let you know. But I have high hopes. I do have a sock that I knit following an Isolde Teague pattern, which does a slightly different way of, it's an afterthought heel way of doing a small gusset on like a sock tube, a sock. This one you get to here and then you knit the heel and then you go back to the rainbow stripes. The Isolde Teague one is you knit it and then you put in waste yarn and finish knitting it and then go back and pick up the heel. And her heel construction is slightly different to make it kind of a squared shape heel, and that's very comfortable, but it's not one I can do without paying attention. So I thought I'd try this, and this is definitely something I can do without having to put a lot of thought into it. So for ease of knitting, that gets full marks, and we'll see how it is for wearing. I'm just checking my notes really quick. Pushy, nutmeg, ducky darlings, woolly goodness. That should be all of my finished objects. These socks are for the SCR1TNO, Sharon's podcast. Sharon of the SCR1TNO knitting podcast is doing a year-long stripy sock cowl that started in February. And then for each month, for each pair of socks, and then it's, you know, like small socks, you have to knit 2 or 4 if they're baby socks. For each pair of socks, you get 1 entry, and then each month there are bonuses if you use the indie dyer or dyers or that month's commercial one. So February was Woolly Goodness and Opal, and I knit a pair of Woolly Goodness socks, so I'll get 2 entries in the month's drawing. And then for March, it's March now. That's not, I'm picking up the wrong project. I've got too many bluey, stripy ones. For March, the commercial dyer is Regia, and then, excuse me, there are a couple of dyers for this month. I know Dye Vista Dye Works in the US, which is one I've not heard of. I try not to pay too much attention to who the amazing dyers in the US are because I cannot get them here in the UK. If you do order them, like, the prices are fine. That's, people I think are charging, for the most part, reasonable if not slightly low prices for what they do. But then you add the shipping, and the shipping is usually about the same amount as, you know, you get 100 grams sock yarn for, I don't know what they go for in the US, but let's say it's $20, and then it's $20 shipping or $10 shipping or whatever it is, and then it gets here. So say the 100 grams of sock yarn was $20, and then the shipping was $10. You get charged 20% on that $30 plus an 8-pound handling fee. That's, I mean, you started off with a $20 pair of socks, and now you've paid like 40 quid for it. So I try not to even be aware of what's going on in the US, because if I see it, I will want it, and if I want it, I will be looking at the price like. So yeah, now the UK is experiencing this with ordering things from anywhere, and people in the EU are experiencing it for ordering things from the UK. It is all just a huge mess. Brexit is the worst thing that has happened to the UK while I've been here. This was the pandemic. The pandemic we at least didn't do to ourselves, although the way it's being handled by the same people who are doing Brexit is terrible. But Brexit is cutting off your nose to spite your face. Like, this is going to be the classic example whenever you have the explain the concept, and it's going to be a picture of Brexit. Because yeah, it's making things really, really bad right now as far as trying to be part of a global society. Anyway, Divested Dye Works was unaware of her yarns. They are gorgeous. Their yarns. I don't know who is. Sorry, I was just scratching my leg through my trousers, and it's making a very loud noise in the way that jeans do. Divested Dye Works. Don't know anything about them. Their yarn is pretty. The commercial one for the month is Regia, and I was thinking I don't really have any Regia. When I first started knitting socks, I bought a skein of Opal and a skein of Regia, and I knit the Regia socks for my husband and the Opal socks for myself, and when I washed the Regia, like, it dissolved, and I don't know how else to say that, and everybody's like, oh, you know, like, I hadn't swatched. I hand washed them. I don't know what happened, but like the fabric just went like super soft and smooth and like translucent, and that put me off Regia. I have no idea what happened to that sock yarn because I've knit with Regia since then, and it's just a normal sock yarn. I have no idea what happened to those socks, that they just basically dissolved. They were translucent. You could, you know, knitting them at a regular gauge, and you could see through them after they were washed. It was really, really off-putting. So I don't tend to have a lot of Regia, but then I was looking through, and I did order a skein of their Pairfect, which is where the yarn comes with this yellow section. So you get to the yellow section, here's the bit I've taken off where I started, and then you start knitting and make your sock as big as you want it. And then you pull through to get to the yellow section again, get past the yellow section and start, and then you have two matching socks because the color repeats will line up again. This sock has a number and not a name. This is color 02768, the evocatively named, and that is what they should look like when they are done. I apologize for the ball band being ripped. It's just the ball band has given up. I did not rip it, it just fell apart. So I have started, and I am in these blues. Started off with kind of the blue-gray, which is looking a bit purple on the screen, going through the teals, and then I should hopefully get, it's going to go back to a darker blue that I've just started, then the pinky, and this purpley one, and so on and so forth. So these are, and this is the 6 ply, so they're knitting up really quickly, though I am trying to make them go pretty far up my cuff. I'm not entirely sure how far through the colorway I will get, but I could just knit them, I was going to say I could just knit them as a really long tube, and then when I am running low on yarn, do the toe and then cut in an afterthought heel. But I started on a larger stitch count so that it would fit further up my leg, but I could just get like halfway through and then decrease, because whether it's at the foot or at the ankle, it does get narrower. There's an idea. Yeah, I have started these. Big old ball of yarn, because I think it's 150 grams for the heavier weight. Yeah, it's 150 grams, which is 375 meters. So it's approximately the same meterage you get in a 4 ply 100-gram skein of yarn. It just takes more weight to get you that distance. So that is for the March SCR1 TNO Knitting Podcasts Stripey Sock Along. Put that off to one side, and then while I'm doing that, I can pick this up and bonk things and just be, it's not even that I'm so terribly disorganized today, although I am, because we're half an hour in and I've only done one whip. But I have a lot to catch up on because it has been a while. What should we do next? Here is something completely new. This is one of the little gray girl bags I showed you last time. The other bag was one I had one I sewed myself. Over lockdown, over Christmas break, my 8-year-old asked me if I could give her more knitting lessons so she could knit a jumper. First she wanted to knit a jumper for me, and I was like, that's too much jumper. I'm big. It takes a lot of knitting to make a jumper for me. So she was going to knit a jumper for her sister. So I started it and got through the ribbing for her so she could just do the knitting round and round. And because it was for her, I didn't bother gauge swatching or anything. I was just gonna kind of let her do it. And she knit like 10 stitches and then said, could she go back to crocheting? So I went back to crocheting, and now I am knitting. It is not quite as hot pink as it is looking. It is more of a corally pink. I initially bought this yarn for me, possibly thinking it was more of a hot pink, but it is very corally pink, and so it does not suit me in reality. Like, the whole thing is more like this little knot here. Like that speckles, that's kind of the whole thing. And then with lighter speckles. What if I turn it this way? Oh, we're gonna need a little bit more of it in the sleeve. This is a very corally pink. It is not a hot pink. So this is for my 4-year-old, and it is I'm just following the numbers from the Strange Brew, and I did chart out, what am I doing here? I have no idea why you're such a mess, but I'm just gonna fold you up. I did chart out a heart pattern based on some mugs from Knit Now magazine, mug cozies. And I did chart out using this lighter pink, which is also Grainaig Creations. There's the logo. I think she has at least paused knitting, no, dying. She does knit, she has a podcast, but I think she's not dying at this time. But I got the light pink, which is originally supposed to be for the 8-year-old, and then there's like a sea foam that was going to be for the youngest one. So I have charted out a heart, stranded heart pattern where it's like some hearts are up and some hearts are down. The ball just ran away. But I don't know if I'm going to do it. But I'm at the point where my stitch count matches up with the start of the chart. So I need to decide if I'm going to do the stranded yoke or not. But I'm making this as a little crop jumper that she can wear over her dresses, because she really likes twirly tulle dresses that do the full circle if you spin. So this way the jumper won't be so long and the skirt can flare out really well. Though I'm making it's about to her natural waist. She has a proportionally long torso. It goes about to her natural waist right now, and I gave it slightly puffed sleeves so that if they're pushed up a bit, they'll just balloon a bit and look good, and then they can still grow out as she gets taller and it gets more cropped. That's what I'm hoping will happen. And I'm just losing a few stitches here. So anyway, nice jumper. Need to decide if I'm doing the stranded color work or not, and then if I am, get on that. And if I'm not, keep going without it. So that is the I'm using the Strange Brew pattern by Tin Can Knits, and that is a recipe for knitting a yoked jumper either top down or bottom up in either fingering DK, which is what I'm using, or Aran weight yarn, and then sized from newborn up to a very large adult, like a 6XL, I think. Might only be 3XL, but I know they've been expanding their pattern, so I think it might even go up to a 6XL. It goes to huge, which is just mind-boggling for what you get. And then there are instructions for how to chart your own, and then they have other patterns you can buy that have charts that fit into the Strange Brew recipe. So yeah, that's kind of a one-stop. If you just need to knit a jumper, this recipe will probably work. I did not, again, do any kind of gauge swatching or anything, so just kind of hoping it works out. But it's going to be bigger than she currently is, so if it doesn't fit right now, she'll grow into it. And that is not intended to be like a really warm jumper for in the winter. That's kind of a layering piece for the rest of the time. So we've got a bit of flexibility. My Regia sock band is just right here. Just checking socks, Strange Brew. Oh, I've got one more thing that didn't make it onto the list properly, and then I found it. I signed up for, paid for, Giddy Yarns is doing a couple of monthly clubs, and one of them is colors inspired by the seasons. And this is a 10-month club, and there's a bunch of different weights you can get it in. And I signed up to get 5 20-gram minis each month. So these are the January colors. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As you can see, stripes are getting smaller as the blanket gets bigger. This is the Habitation Throw, and I don't remember who it's by. I'll put that information down below. This is a paid pattern, though a year ago, March, the designer did put this up as a free pattern when kind of the whole Western European and North American world went into lockdown in March last year in various stages. She did put the Habitation Throw up for free, and she does a bunch of Advent patterns each year, a collection of Advent patterns each year to go with Advent calendars of mini balls, mini skeins. And this is one, I think, from 2018, one of her patterns, which is now available individually. And I think the ones for 2020 are now available individually. I've seen other people knitting them, and some of them look really, really pretty and wonderful, but I don't knit enough in December from Advent calendars to make that worth it. So I'm just going to do a tiny little acquisition blip. It's not going to be a smooth segue because I've got 2 projects that also tie into acquisitions. And this, Marvelous Monthly Minis. It's, I'm just going to close it up a bit. It's on the inside of the box. I don't know if I can get that to focus. So these are the February colors. So if you were waiting for yours and you do not have them yet, these came while I was getting ready to podcast this. These came just today. Look away now, and I will not describe the colors, and I'll tell you when you can look back. So these are the colors, and then it's going to go from this color here into this one, and then through the 5. So yeah, those just came today. Each one took like maybe an hour to knit. Although I did have to restart this because I changed my needle size. That's what it was. I went up a bunch of needle sizes. I think This might be a 5.0 millimeter. And I think I started with like a 4.0 millimeter and it was just not drapey enough. And now it is lovely and drapey. And when I've knit up May, that will be halfway through the 10 months. And I'll see how big half the blanket is. I mean, if I do April's and I'm like, this is big enough, then I can make it rectangular or whatever. But I'm just thinking a big square blanket that's going to be lots of different colors that kind of vaguely segue together. Not vaguely, they do segue together. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to cozying up under a lovely squishy blanket. And I also really like the fact that, as I said, it's like an hour to knit each mini, that I just work on it one day and put it aside and then I don't have to worry about it. Sorry about that. Just a bit of pause. My husband came in and got ready to go for his walk before he comes back. Oop, just kicked the camera table. Pause the video because my husband came in. He's gone for his walk. I gave him back his socks and his new socks, which he didn't realize the second pair was for him as well. And cleared away some of the things I've already talked about. And I still have several bags. I still have several bags. I also got myself a fresh cup of tea. It is Bird and Blend because I am exactly like every other knitting podcaster. Although I will say I am not their hugest fan, if only because I do not care for Rooibos and they do a lot of Rooibos. When I say I don't care for it, I've tried it. I really have. And I made a tea from them and I didn't realize it was a Rooibos. Like I hadn't read the label very carefully because it was just a little tea bag that had come with an order. And the rest of it sounded really, really good. So I made it and then I was doing other things. I'm like, what is that terrible smell? And I realized it was because it was a Rooibos. I thought it was an herbal. And I had to pour it out and take the tea bag out to the compost pile. Libby has come to say hello. Hello. I do not have anyone close by who likes Rooibos. I know several people who love it, but none of them are here in Inverness. None of them. Oliver has followed her in through the door as well. These are my cats, Libby and Oliver. I do not have anyone I can regularly offload any Rooibos I get. And that's why like I didn't do their tea calendar this year. My husband had got me one a couple years ago. And then I bought one for myself the following year. But 2019, I did not do it. And in 2019, they had an option where you could do like only black teas, only Rooibos teas, only, and I didn't do it. And then this year they didn't have that option. Oliver is sniffing every leaf on the floor. I raked the garden yesterday for an hour and it is still all leaves. Not the whole garden, but the conservatory is full of leaves. Anyway, I like Bird and Blend. I don't like Rooibos, and they seem to be leaning really hard into the Rooibos. Good, happy, love that everybody else loves them. Not for me, but I did get Rooibos and not Rooibos. I got tea in some of the flavors I do like for Christmas from my kids. Oliver is wandering out the door and Libby is watching him go. Libby is now running after Oliver quietly. She's the smaller cat, but she's also usually the one where you can tell where she is in the house because she just stomps. She doesn't bother to. She's very much the Gilbert and Stolivan cat-like tread rather than what you would think of as a pristine hunter. See, I got completely derailed. What is this strand? Go under there. I henna my hair and then all the big streaks of gray turn ginger. My child was telling me yesterday I need to do more because my hair's turning silver again. I guess she doesn't like that. She does not approve. I don't approve either, but I was very like blasé about it because I want to model not caring, like, oh no, you know, some people like gray hair and I like ginger hair, like the ginger streaks, so I do the henna rather than be like, oh no, silver, because on me it does not look good. Some people can do it really well, and on me it just does not look fabulous. So I just henna it and then I get copper streaks and everybody's happy. It is the only way I can dye my hair. I haven't tried like full on bleaching it, but things that are, you know, like how it comes with the warning label that it may be extra intense over gray hair. And I'm like, great, that's perfect. I want extra intense over silver hair. There was a leaf blowing in the wind over there and it caught my eye. Like I left that on and it says, you know, like the festival dye, the bright colors. I got one of the ones and it was like for a pastel color, do it for 5 minutes. For an intense color, do it for half an hour. I left it on for 2 hours. 2 hours. And if I told you to look for the color, then you would kind of look at my hair and be like, oh yeah, no, I guess that's I can see the slightest hint. I was not best pleased. I want colors, bright, vibrant colors made to turn gray hair. Like all the colors of the rainbow. That'd be nice. But for now, I get very nice copper highlights. I'm not complaining. I'm very okay with what I am, but I have tried other things and they have not worked for me at all. If you have experience over dyeing your silver hair, not bleaching and dyeing, but just dyeing gray hair over really thick black hair, thick for white girls, black hair, I would love to hear about that. What products do you use? And are they available in the UK? Because I have heard of a few that are not available in the UK. They're only available in the US. So if you're a UK person and you have a way of dyeing your gray hair, your silver hairs, vibrant colors, I would like to hear about that. Okay, moving back into knitting things. I am very excited about the next thing I'm going to talk about. This is not a paid promotion. I have paid for all my own inclusion in this knit along. The next book for the Arnold Culliford, it was a year of techniques, and then it was Boost Your Knitting, a second year of techniques, and then now it is Confident Knitting, and this is yet another year-long book. 12 patterns in the book. Each month they release video and pictorial tutorials. Picture tutorials with written instructions. The videos are on YouTube or their website. The picture instructions are only in the book or the digital downloads. So yeah, I ordered the book and it'll come out in August again. So they get like 6 months in while they're still building everything, releasing one pattern a month. Then it comes out in August, and then you continue with the videos being released and knit-alongs being launched each month. And the first month's pattern came out yesterday, March 1st. And the technique is a folded brim. And then it's a pair of hand warmers. The pattern is the Flux hand warmers by Martina Bem. I'm pronouncing that wrong and I'm sorry. Ms. Arnold Culliford mentioned it in the video for how to do it, and I went, oh, that's not how I thought it was, like in my head how I hear it, how I would say it, and I've already forgotten what it is supposed to be. But this is, the first project uses the crazy Zauberball. I apologize for using that C word incorrectly because I know it is ableist, but that is what the yarn is called. So the Zauberball in the marled colorways, and the marls are offset so they come out in different ways, And I've got this blue with the black, which wound up being the folded under part. And then going up. Doot, doot, doot. So yeah, got my first folded hem. Not my first ever folded hem, but my first one. I think it is the first one I've done in this particular style. I did knit a pair of mitts. Oh, it's a really popular, I think, free pattern 10 years ago, because I knit them for my husband, and they were like the reading mitts, and you were supposed to do a picot folded brim, but it was one where you did it and then at the end you went and you sewed it all together, which in Jen's term is a less elegant way of doing it. And I've just started the stitch markers to mark the thumb increases. So I've just started the thumb increases. I did this yesterday. I had to redo the cuff a couple of times, not because of any problem with the pattern or anything like that, but simple reading comprehension for the needle size. I missed the part where you start with a smaller needle. Completely makes sense. And then the needles I had picked out were supposed to be a 2.5 millimeter needle, and I thought those look really big for 2.5 millimeter needles. And then when I checked again, they were US 2.5s. I mean, I'd measured them, I just looked at the wrong number, which is a 3, and you wouldn't think 2.5 to 3 is such a big difference, but it was making a really loose, gapey fabric that did not look nearly as nice as this does, and I'm very happy with the way the colors are coming out. I did get one of the kits. I have other Zauberballs. I've got their 6-ply, which is also in the marled, which I thought it was the regular 4-ply, and then when I found it, I realized it was the DK weight, not the 4-ply, the sock weight. Libby has come back. So I went ahead and got that, and this is these lovely bright blues, teals, and kind of grays. Sorry, that was off camera. And then the other ones for spring, I didn't get the spring colorway because there's 4 colorways, and so there's spring colors, summer colors, autumn colors, and winter colors. I got the winter colors, and it includes this gorgeous yarn. Again, it is going ever so slightly too bright pink. This is not as corally as the other yarn I showed you was, but it's just a cool toned, slightly dusky magenta. This is Dusty Dimples, who I had heard of. She's an English dyer. This is the colorway Amore, and this is called her, what did she call it? Dusty Worsted. It is a DK weight with a reasonably standard DK, so it's 115 gram hank and then a 50 gram hank. So whatever we're knitting takes, I guess, roughly 165 grams. But Fiber Spates Scrumptious DK is the same meterage for weight, so I do have some of that, but I have a sweater quantity of that in my stash. So this will be one of the months, and then the other month is, I think it's 8 skeins. Sorry, Libby. I dropped some and they fell on her head. 8 skeins, which forms a double gradient from this dark navy on top, then kind of the medium blue, the tealy blue, the grays, the creams. It does work out as a double gradient. I do not have an 8 skein double gradient in my stash, so I thought I'll go ahead and get it. And then, like, the Dusty Dimples will probably be my Mother's Day present. And it came in a drawstring bag, which is nice. Always could use a nice large drawstring project bag for my many blankets and jumpers. I've been on a wanting to knit all the blankets kick for a while. So yeah, that's their new, it's not even Year of Techniques this year, but the new Year of Techniques. I've talked about them before. There was a year before I started the podcast was the first year, and then there was a year off. And then the second year, I podcasted about most of my projects and wound up giving a lot of them to my friends who moved to Inverness from California that year. So I was kind of like, knitting mittens, set them aside to give to them. A hat, set it aside to give to them. Arm warmers, here you go. They got most of the things from that book, that knit along. And then this is the third year, so it's 1 year on, 1 year off. And this is the on year. I'm very excited, especially because to participate in the knit-alongs, which is on their website. It's on their website. Ta-da! acknitwear.co.uk. They have their own knitting forum, and you don't have to buy the book. You don't have to buy the yarn. You can watch the YouTube tutorial and use the technique. You don't have to watch the tutorial if you can figure out the technique, but it's just use a pattern, any pattern that uses that technique, and then you can be in on the knit along. And you don't have to finish. Participation is what counts. This is all for fun. Really easygoing, happy, relaxed knit alongs. So yeah, What's she doing with her tail? People would much rather see your beautiful face than your stinky bum. Yeah, yeah. Your pretty green eyes. So that is also an acquisition, the first kit for that. The yarns always look so pretty. It's very hard to resist. I know this year the Dusty Dimples is the first of their indie dyed, and then the rest are either tend to be Zauberball or Fiber Spates brand, which includes Carol Feller's. Nua, that's what it is. I'm gonna say I can't remember what it's called, but I love it. The Nua, and Carol Feller is one of the designers. Who else? Coop Knits. That's a Fiber Spates produced brand. And then Jamerson Smiths and the Zauberball brand are the ones I think that'll be involved. But then they're doing an indie dyer each quarter. So it's Dusty Dimples this quarter. One of them will be Fab Funky Fibers. One of them will be Old Maiden Ant. And I'm sorry, I'm not remembering who the fourth indie dyer is. But I will tell you certainly when we get there, whether I get their yarn or not. I'm sure it will be absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, so I'm very happy to be part of that knit along again. Jen has assured us these mitts are really, really quick, and given that I did all that knitting in maybe an hour yesterday, that was about all the time I had for working on it. I believe it, because they go very quick and the yarns are very pretty. Some people are not wanting to knit them in the Zauberball because you will get fraternal mitts. You will not get twin mitts very easily because it's marled yarns and the two different colors are different, so where they hit, getting both yarns to line up at the same point is not an easy thing to do. But Zauberball in general does lots of gorgeous gradient yarns back before gradient yarns were something that indie dyers did more of. What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Did you find our new bird feeder? We got a new bird feeding station and I put it right over there so we could watch it while see it while we're sat here in the conservatory. And I think Libby has just discovered that the bird TV is there. The bird channel on Cat TV maybe. I really lost my everything when I came back, didn't I? Just lost the plot. one more work in progress to show you, and this one is crochet. And for some reason there is a knitting needle sticking out of it. That's because that was the knitting needle for the folded brim. I have started another blanket, and this one is the Battenberg blanket by I wrote it down, Cherry Heart. That's her knitting name. She has YouTube tutorials, it's on her webpage, but you make these little closed granny squares and then cream ones, and then you alternate them all, and it looks like a Battenberg cake, which is not something I'd ever encountered until I moved to the UK. But you do them in lots of different colors, half of them cream, and then all the other colors that you want, and make a gorgeous, beautiful bedspread. And I just got the cream recently, so I have been making up these little ones, and I'm using, I will take one at random, my advent calendar from 2018, and this was the Claire of Wee County Yarns, which is the Wee County here in Scotland. And she does these mini balls where she buys the big cones and then winds them up into 10-gram minis. I believe this is the JC Rennie Super Soft Lamb's Wool. So you get all the different colors they do on their cones, and then you can buy the mini balls, and they're big enough that you can do a lot of really cute little projects for. She has lots of free projects using the mini balls on her website, but I am now using them, and for most of the colors I've been doing 3, just because the first one I tried knitting a vivid and I used too large a needle. It came out a bit flimsy, too drapey, and I didn't think it was going to be strong enough, and I've never pulled it out. So what I had left of the ball got me 3 of these little squares, 4 rounds. So I was doing the 3s, and then once I had a bunch, I ordered a 50-gram ball, 2 50-gram balls from Wee County Yarn, so it would be the matching yarn. And now I'm starting to go back and crochet the cream squares and then join them to the colored squares, and then I can work out placement from there. The first 11 months were mostly very autumnal colors. This isn't even all of them. Doot, doot, doot. And then it was taupes was the next kind of one. I've preliminarily done 4 of the taupes just to see, because I was thinking about doing all 4, like doing 1 cream square and then doing the 4 around it. But I was looking through a lot of other people's projects and no one has really done it. So doing 4, I still have this much left over. No one has really done it that way, so I couldn't really think how that would look. So for now, I'm just doing 1 colored square and 1 cream square, and I need to have to be part of the check-in for the end of March. Again, Sharon of the SCR1TNO podcast is doing a square a day knit along. So at the end of March, it'll be 90 or more squares. They do not have to be all joined up at that point. So if I have 45 colored squares and 45 cream squares, so that is 15 sets of 3, I think. 15 times 3 is 45. Yes, that's where I'm going. I can see my husband coming home in the background. So that will be my crochet for the check-in. This was coincidentally color 15, so hopefully I will get there, and I need to work on it just a little more than I am. I did start most of the way through January, I think is when I started that one, because I don't believe I had it for the previous podcast. So yeah, that is my Battenberg blanket in progress, and hopefully that will come along in time. I'm just gonna stop the video. Hello again. Sorry about that. My husband did come back from his walk, and then we had lunch together, and now here I am. I have a new cup of tea. This one's just regular Earl Grey from Tesco, and I have a surprise. Ta-da! It is the hat I knit my husband for Christmas. He left it in here after lunch. And this is the Malabrigo Washted, and it is a woolly wormhead pattern. I was gonna say I don't remember what it is, but let me just see. If I have it in my show notes. I don't, because I didn't do show notes for like the last 3 episodes, so I guess it does not predate that. But this is a woolly wormhead pattern, and it was the mystery knit along 2018. That sounds right. 2018. What was 2019? I don't know. She did not do a specifically organized knit along this last year, because she had previously run her mystery knit alongs on Ravelry, and that obviously, I mean, she's one of the people who's really badly affected by the site design and gets migraines and other visual triggered problems because of the site design, so she can't use it much at all. And they are currently working on their own website, which she's had her own website, but building it up to be something. I'm on her mailing list, and she mentioned that there's gonna be a lot more information in the next couple of weeks or days possibly. I don't know. Sign up if you like hats. Sign up for her mailing list, because you do get a lot of really good stuff for being on the mailing list. Anyway, it's got these little lifted stitches, a split brim. Split brims are really nice because they let you pull the hat down, and then it just rests on the back of your neck, but it does a big, I'm not going to put it on because my hair isn't entirely terrible right now. I actually quite like it mostly. I like 90% like it right now, which is pretty good for liking your own hair. Anyway, this is what I knit him for Christmas. I said in the last episode that I was going to include a picture. I did not include a picture. I did not edit that video much, if at all, because it would have taken me another week to edit it and get it up. So yeah, Malabrigo Washted. I knit the first one in Malabrigo worsted in a kind of teal color that someone had given me when they destashed. And so I bought this skein. The worsted was largely sold out when I was looking to knit another one. My husband really liked his hat, and it was basically felting into oblivion. Because I don't know if you can tell, this is a single ply yarn. There are no plies there. It is just one fluffy, it's not quite focused, but I think you can tell. One fluffy thing, and then with lots of wear and rubbing, it was losing stitch definition and everything and getting bobbly, which I can fix, but the loss of stitch definition I kind of can't. So we picked a Washted, which is the superwash version of worsted, in this reddish, blackish, slightly orangey reddish yarn for my husband. So now he has a very soft, very comfortable hat. He wears it inside as well as out pretty much all the time. So yeah, I said I would tell you about it last time, and I didn't, because that's what my life is like right now. So I think I just about finished telling you about my crochet blanket along, which brings me to acquisitions. I already mentioned, I showed you the Unicorn Fizz Woolly Goodness socks. Those are already knit up. I showed you the box that came today for the blanket, and I showed you the Year of Knitting and the ball of cream yarn for the Battenberg blanket. I'm going to apologize now for the crinkling, because what I have is another Ducky Darlings. This is the 72 stitch count. Again, she added a mini, which is not part of the listing, so I'm very grateful for the bonus mini. So I will do these for my husband as well. I'm trying to think how much they cost now. After I knit the first pair for him, I went online to see who else does sock tubes, and there are some services where you can send them a skein of yarn and then they will tube it for you. And there are a few places that will charge a surcharge to tube it, I think, but now I don't really remember. I'm sure, like, if you went to Ducky Darlings and you said you have this skein of yarn, is it possible to have it tubed, that you could get at least an answer for that. I believe it's a husband and wife pair, and the wife does most of the dyeing, but the husband does the sock cranking, so it'll depend on what all they have going on and how they're feeling, and I have no idea what all factors will go into it, but you could always ask. And so I looked at lots of other places, and the ones that are selling sock tubes, a lot of them were like 30 quid for a 50-gram tube. And obviously I could get a pair of socks out of a 50-gram tube, because I got 2 pairs out of a 100-gram tube, and other than the fact that one pair has stretched out a lot now, they are the same, pretty much identical in length. Sorry, more crinkling. So I bought another set from Ducky Darlings, and there's the 72 stitches, or there's a 60 stitches, which is slightly smaller. I would tend to do like 64 to 70 for myself, depending on the thickness of the yarn and the pattern and how fitted, you know, like the yarn brand. Tend to do slightly more stitches for West Yorkshire spinners, slightly few stitches for Opal, you know, those kind of things. 60 stitches to me seems a little small, but if it's going to stretch out like that, have a lot of horizontal, I think it's horizontal. How are you thinking about the fabric? If it has a lot of sideways stretch when you're wearing it, then the 60 might actually work out pretty well for me. But in the meantime, I found Pixie Yarn, and I know nothing about them other than the dyer's name is Sophie. And this is a sparkly base again, and it came with, I presume these are 2 10-gram minis. And I think this is only a 50-gram. Oh, what the heck. I apologize for the crinkling. It says, this is the color Monster Mash, so it was on sale because it's a Halloween colorway. These colors do not, to me, read Halloweeny, but I know purple, British people seem to think purple is a Halloween color, so I guess if you think purple is a Halloween color, these don't read Halloween to me. And it says approximately 9 stitches per inch, 11 rows per inch, 290 rows per 290 rows per 50-gram sock, which is what this is. And it is 29 to 30 inches long. This is the sock tube. As you can see, the colors have pooled into a nice stripe. From a distance, it basically looks like purple and teal, but up close there's a lot more oranges and kind of greenies and pinkies. There's lots of color variation, reds. From a distance, kind of a pinky purple and teal. Yeah, so these are for me, and this is, I think it's a thicker yarn, and it feels very soft and squidgy. The other one feels more slinky, and it is, I think it's 64 stitches in the round. So we'll see how this sock yarn, how it wears. Maybe I paid $18 for it on sale. That sounds 16, 18. It was something I didn't write it down. It's probably on my Ravelry notes because I am still keeping notes. No, I'm really not keeping, I'm not adding things to Ravelry much. Anyway, that's my acquisition. How much time do I have before I have to go get my children? I have 4 minutes. Since my kids have gone back to school, I have mostly cleaned the house. That is what I have done every day. I figure every day I can listen to one podcast, at least one podcast. I've got a backlog. My favorites are I Hi By Light. I hate it, but I love it, which is 2 Canadian women in their mid-30s, and then they talk about pop culture, mostly movies, sometimes TV shows, and they talk about what they love about it and what they hate about it. So, you know, like, everything is basically problematic, and they talk about the different levels of problematic in favorite things, or things that they hate that occasionally have fun moments. It depends on what's going on. My favorite episodes are where they basically love it, but they love it because I like positivity, but they laugh a lot, and that's a lot of fun. I laugh a lot listening to them. And yeah, if you want to check it out, I would say go through their back catalog and find a movie or TV show that you have strong feelings about, and see if their strong feelings have anything compatible with your strong feelings, and if you like it. There'll be even someone like me who does not watch a lot of movies, has not watched a lot of movies in the past. It's a lot of fun. Movies I've never seen. They talk about movies I barely remember because I saw them when I was 10. So yeah, that one's probably one of my favorites. Another one is Maintenance Phase, which is a podcast about diet culture and how it's all lies. It is one giant stack of lies from the top to the bottom. And how old lies are now the new lies, and they do various topics, and it's always really interesting. And that is your fat friend and Michael Hobbs from the You're Wrong About podcast, which is also on my list. I am not 100% interested in everything they do, but they do a lot of mostly US-centric deep dives. Lots of things you might remember, and they'll explain how you remember them wrong. There's a few others, but those are kind of my favorite for weekly podcasts I follow. Now I'm trying to remember what Louise Scolle's one is called, because she changed the name. Anyway, I listened to her audio podcast and a few others. So yeah, that's, if I can listen to one podcast, and I've got a bunch, because when Catherine stopped taking naps and I stopped taking her for an hour-long walk every day, I stopped, well, it'd be like a 20-minute walk and she'd be asleep, and then I'd come home and then I could listen to the rest of the podcast. I stopped going through podcasts quite so quickly, and I've got a backlog from that year. So I've got lots of podcasts to get through, got some history ones. I don't intend to do the true crime ones. it's not that I wouldn't, it's just I haven't. I've got a suitable number of podcasts I listen to versus how much free time I have for listening to a podcast and doing chores. But when my children are home, I can't really listen to a podcast and do chores because they keep interrupting me, and then I have no idea what's going on, and it's all a mess. So my hope is listen to a podcast or an audiobook if I run out of podcasts, and do an hour, which is roughly how long the podcasts usually last. There's my timer saying it's time to get my kids. Gardening wise, I've raked up the grass like I said and put the leaves in the borders. I did do it before winter, like before the snow covered it all, but I pulled a mussel right here, like in front of my rib cage, which I read about it, and it's a thing that happens, and you can tear it very easily, especially if you're 40, which is how old I will be this year, 40 or older, very easily injured. But I was raking and I pulled that mussel, so I couldn't do a lot more raking. So I did the lawn behind the conservatory a few times, but I didn't do any lawn on the side of the house. So there were lots of leaves there, and I raked them up and put them in the hedges and in the compost. And I trimmed, I've got rose bushes on the side of the house here. I have them. This is my father-in-law's house before me. So all of the hardscaping and most of the established garden is his. The roses here, I cut them back. The hydrangea in the raised beds here, I cut back, and we put a bird feeder just right over there, a bird feeding station, so that we can sit in the conservatory and see the birds. When we first moved here, I tried putting it over there, but I think they didn't like the bird feeder in the middle of the lawn. At our old house, we had it next to some really overgrown rose bushes, so they could just go. My timer is like a 5-minute warning to when I have to leave. So they didn't like it there. So I put it in front of the house where you can see it at the front windows. There's a helicopter overhead. The RNLI, Royal National Lifeboat Institute, they do practice drills overhead, so that's probably what that helicopter was, although there is a military base not too terribly far, and Inverness Airport is only a couple miles that way, and the hospital, I don't think we're under the hospital's flight path, but they do have a helipad for getting people here quickly from around the Highlands. Helicopters are not unheard of, though that one was very loud. Anyway, I've now established a bird feeder over here as well. The birds kind of go to the one in the front garden, and I planted a tree near it, so I think as that gets bigger, they'll be happier. But they already really like the bird feeder over here, because I don't know if you can see right behind me, these kind of brownish lumps here are a vine hydrangea that's on top of the trellis, so they can very easily go from the trellis to the bird feeder and back, so they feel nice and safe. And I only filled them an inch each, so that if it took a while for them to find the bird feeder and feel comfortable using it, we weren't wasting a lot of food. That day I saw at least 2 robins, at least 4 tits and 4 blue tits and 3 coal tits, and I saw some finches, but they weren't going to the bird feeder, so I'll need to get a Niger feeder for that because I like finches. But yeah, they already seem really happy going to that bird feeder, so I think that might be the best bird feeder site in our garden for happy birds and happy us watching them. Yeah, the kids are back at school. They're not overly thrilled, but they've been doing all right. They seem happier there. It's the going there that they don't like, near as I can tell. But hopefully they will continue to settle in, and by April they're hoping to reintroduce the older kids. While we were having lunch, our neighbors to that side, they've got a 14-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I guess they came out after lunch and were having a play, and the older child climbed a tree and the younger child was trying to poke with a stick. And Chris, who was sat over there looking towards them, kept giving updates on how they were getting on. But yeah, so I bet their parents are hoping that the school's open for the older kids soon too. I'm hoping it's safe enough to do so. The older girl is at the school my kids, the younger of the two kids, the girl, is at the school where my kids go. So it'll be good to have the older kids there as well. I think she's the house captain. She's at least the captain of her house. I don't know if she's like head boy, head girl, whatever. Everything I know about school captains, houses, head boy, girl, I learned from Harry Potter, and I didn't realize it was a real thing until I got here. But yeah, Harry Potter, there's another. I'm gonna go get my kids now, and yeah, the bell should be ringing just now. She'll let my older child out, and I meet her halfway home, and I give her a snack, which she then comes home, and she can come in because my husband's here, so the door's open, and I collect the smaller one. Thank you very much for listening to me babble on. I know I'm a bit out of practice, but hopefully I will have more to talk about and time to talk about it. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye. Christina needs to draw birds for her school assignment. So to make it fun for her, I drew a cat sitting in a window looking out at the garden. This is what she drew.
It's D5.